have to disagree with um, the overall statement. Uh, First of all, Rex said something about we talk a lot about being open all the way, and you have we have to remember that we are really aware of that, and that's why the content that's there is like we discussed this a lot. Like we weren't going to gate any education because, for example, the academy is making a lot of efforts into keeping it open and all of that. But the reality is, as open as we are, there are things that you have to request access to anyways. There's like you cannot edit a lot of the documents. You need to be given access to a lot of stuff, and we are just figuring out what else is that we could gate that the token would be the ideal way to gate it. It's not like we are trying to cover anything important, and like again, we are pretty much aware of that. And as far as the cost, again, I don't think the token holder channel, the current token holder channel itself, is the end game. But there's a lot of cool stuff that that we can plug in, like access management, like the creation service using the token, and a lot of stuff that it's you know um, I don't see why there's such focus and pullback against the tool, because it's a tool we just have to use whatever way we decide to, and so far we haven't made any decision that goes against any of the values and missions of the TUC.
Yeah, and I'd like
Yeah,
to.
but it gives that. Sorry, it does give that. It gives it does give us very much the chance too, and in terms of radically open, I tend to just look at an open source license and see how those sorts of things work in the same way that as in code we're trying to do the same with information. So even though being radically open doesn't mean having access to any edit the commons, it means having access to view it. Right, that's what open source is about, and the token gate goes very much against open source as a concept. It is closing the source in order to do that, and it's a very fine line as to how much value we put in one, how much value we put in the other, and at what point some people agree with it and some people don't. It's a very fine line that we're treading with.
Right. My perspective is that it feels like, I kind of echoing a little bit of what NT said, many things will actually still be quite open. This is more just for people who are, I guess, focused on, I guess, like actually voting on the direction of where the TEC goes, and it's just more for very specific purposes, I guess. And I think like it's too early either way to have a very strong opinion, to be honest, because we haven't really launched it or tested it or seen the feedback and seen how it affects the community. So I think, I don't know, from my perspective, like the goal is to just try a bunch of things and then see what's working and what's not. And if there's something that severely like takes away from what we want to do, then we just stop it. But I don't think it makes sense to really like limit it at this point.
Yeah. So if I can add just one, go ahead, Karen.
I was just going to say there's a little bit of echo coming from your mic, but if you're talking, it's fine.
Okay. Yeah, sorry, I had to switch off of my the Wi-Fi, so I'm just on a phone right now. Yeah, here's the thing. I think that this is a new world that we're moving into, and there's a difference. What we mean by open. I think we're defining that, and we're a commons, and so a commons is a little bit different, and I think we're still learning what that means. One of the things that I think is a very important concept for this commons is permissionless, right? So it's like anybody. It's open in the sense of anybody can join as long as they agree to the terms of the community. That's one definition of open. But that's not the same as, free in the sense of like free beer. It's even open source licenses have terms that you have to agree to. So I think that's one of the things that we're playing with, and we're going slow intentionally with this so that we don't make some decisions down the road that hurt the culture and hurt the brand in a way, like the name of the TEC. So I agree with Risha that I think it's too early to have very strong opinions about this, is my perspective. I think we've got to define what we mean. And I think the other thing that's really important, I just really want to convey this to everybody, is that this is not like a corporation. We're not putting up a paywall that is going, to like increase profits or, returns for some shareholders that are somehow out there, right? Like, this is somehow increasing the economic value that we're accruing into this commons that is jointly held by all of the shareholders of this commons. And the work that we have before us in terms of making sure that that's equitable is about how we make those tokens accessible to everybody who's contributing. So I don't know. That's my caution back to you, to all of the people who are worrying about this. Is I think it's good to worry. It's maybe not good to worry. It's good to ask questions. I think it's really important that we ask questions about this and that we check ourselves as we move forward. And I think we need to remain open and we need to experiment. That's my perspective. But who else? Any other thoughts on this?
Yeah. On that note, I think so. Regarding what Rex said, I was just reading an article that gave some clarity on the It's titled "The Paradox of DAO Profitability," and there's a quote that says that a public goods ethos is sometimes applied to things that aren't public goods, which stalls revenue generation. I think the token gated channel will be a club good. So it will be non-rivalrous like public goods, but it will be excludable. Yeah, such as like satellite TVs or private parks or movie theaters type of thing. So I think it's an important distinction. I think we're experimenting with not only public goods, which require funding and are hard to monetize, but club goods. On that note, I think the token gated idea is a step in the right direction, but I've been doing some research, and we don't necessarily need to be the ones developing. There are other tools. I recently went on a call with one called DAO Lens, which they have an onboarding bot and an aggregator of roles and bounties and the positions offered within the community. And also they have a very easy way to create token gated channels. They give you, it's not only a bot, but they have integrated that with an interface on like a web app, like a website page, and you can very easily there create the channel or give different access to different people. Some channels are going to be for admins only, others are going to be public. There's nothing wrong with that. So I'd be happy to start, exploring that with you, Gideon. I have, a demo. I went through the demo with them. They gave me a video of the demo. They have developed this solution with they're working hundreds of DAOs, and so that's that. And something else is I've been working on a scraping bot for the longest time. It got stalled because the engineer had some family issues and had to quit the project. However, I've encountered someone who can help me with it, and so I think we can offer that content on the Token Gated channel. So how it would work is we would the Twitter scraping bot would mine over um, hundreds of profiles of influential people and organizations within the Web3 or token engineering space, thought leaders all around, and it would allow us to present all that unstructured data into a spreadsheet so that a person, a human, can read over it, see the engagement that tweet had, the actual tweet, how many shares it got, how many likes, and from that we can get a finger on the pulse of what are the things that are being talked about in the space, and from then we can do this type of crowdsourced content creation. So uh, that would really allow us to inform ourselves on what people are talking about, what they need, where are some pain points, and we can be ahead of the curve in that sense. We can start writing articles for that. We can then publish those articles on the Token Gated channel, and I think that would be a really good use instead of just depending on people. I mean, I'm sure I don't know the full. I don't know the full thinking behind, like, what do we expect people to post on the Token Gated channel so that it's valuable enough to be behind a paywall. But this would be something valuable, and yeah, I think it's something that we could put in there, and so those are two things. I don't think we can summarize. I don't think we can. We need to develop their own tool. We can just plug and play into other tools that not only offer a way for us to create token gated, but also onboarding, and also, yeah.
So one thing on the Token Gated channel, I think it would be good for you to look at the Guild XYZ tool. That's not something that we built. It's very similar to what you're talking about, and it's used by hundreds of organizations, and I think it has similar functionality. So
it's not XYZ, it's some DAO-lens.
No, what I'm saying is Guild XYZ has very similar functionality. It's not something that we built. It's a tool that we're just using from somebody else, and it sounds like it's pretty similar. Maybe what you can do is check in with NT, and he can show you what it's like. From what you're just explaining, it sounds somewhat similar to what you're describing to DAO-lens. So, because NT went through a whole process a couple months ago, going through and like analyzing all of these different token gating tools, and ended up picking Guild XYZ. So we can look at the other ones. I think we should always be open to stuff, but at the same time, also we did go through this process and made a decision. And like maybe you and NT can follow up. If it looks like this other one is like way better, then sure, we should switch over. But at this point, I'd hate to kind of like reverse a bunch of work that NT has already done doing that analysis. That tool, the scraping tool, sounds interesting. Like that might be something that we could actually fit in with the curation tool that we're working on. So maybe what we could do is you can give a pointer to that. There are some existing tools that are out there right now too. They're kind of like that. It sounds like similar, but maybe a little bit different. So if you could, maybe you can just provide a pointer in the Sampo channel, and we can all take a look at that. That sounds interesting.
Yeah, sure.
Does that sound good?
Just like a last note, I'm thinking we should stop calling it the Token Gate channel, more like I don't know, like something like a focus channel or something. Because like the reasoning behind doing it with one TDC and just provide relevant information for token holders is because we have no way to concentrate any token holder message. And I remember the other day, I think Green Royale complained because we use the add everyone way too much, and now we just have another option. I think we should look at it that way. Guild is just an access tool, and we are building access solutions. One of them that I think was necessary was a solution for token holders to know what's up, and that's and the information is available elsewhere. But if you're a token holder that doesn't have much time, you can just go there and you have everything pretty detailed without any other noise, and that's it.
I'll just point out that my objections are not that token gating is inherently bad. In fact, we're architecting a very gated setup for Gravity, right? But we're saying we're doing that right from the beginning. We're saying we're doing these things right from the beginning of our DAO, right? And so we're being very transparent about how we're doing it, and we're doing it for security purposes and for content purposes and for money generation purposes, because we actually have clients. We have people who are going to pay us to do certain things, so we have to give them access. So for security purposes, primarily, it's totally fine with me. So my objection is not that we're doing it at all. The question is just that we've had such a radically different ethos in token engineering commons. So the token gating, the term itself just has maybe a bad connotation to it. So there may be another way to frame what we're doing in such a way that it makes a little more sense.
Yeah, and now happy to provide my feedback here as well. I think that the first thing that we should focus on is building the value first before we decide to create this token gated channel for valuable things to get built on. I think whatever products we eventually do have in a token gated channel would be stronger if we get feedback from everybody on it first, and we make it an open product first, and be able to get everybody's feedback and have everybody who wants to use it be able to use it, so that we can really identify whether this is a real valuable product or not. Because getting the biggest tester set possible would help, first of all, the product be as strong as possible, and get feedback from an entire community, instead of just limiting the feedback and trial and error development process to just the few people that have tokens. I think that would definitely speed up the development process if we launch whatever products that we think are valuable publicly on the commons first, and then once we identify them as valuable, then we can token gate it. The second thing, second idea, or one idea that I have for something that we could do for token gated, for the token gated channel, is kind of have somebody, or allow the token holders to highlight messages that get posted across the entire commons channel that we have. There's a lot of different messages in a lot of different channels here, and it's hard for anybody to really keep up with everything, let alone identify which messages are like valuable, or might contain alpha, or have opportunities for members to gain value from. So if we could have a token gated channel that saves members time by highlighting the most important messages, that could be very valuable. One downside of that, though, would be, it would probably make it a little bit more difficult for new members to get onboarded and easily like see all of the top messages and most important messages to keep up with in the commons. Although we could separate the two things. We could have like one public open channel for new member onboarding to get a good idea of what the commons is all about, and then this token gated channel would focus more on opportunities for members to get value from.
So couple quick things. It's probably worth just mentioning the way that this content curation service is going to work, because it will be open to everybody to post content and to interact with other people's content, to basically give feedback on stuff that you think is good. The token gated channel is really just an experiment with like taking some of the kind of the greatest hits and putting that in the token gate in that token. Let's call it token holder channel instead of token gated, just as a first step towards kind of repositioning this to the token holder channel. And the first phase of that is basically, using the collective intelligence of the community for sharing posts, right? Like articles and things like that. But one of the things that the Common Sense team who we're working with on this is interested in is using that for what you're talking about, Zach, which is kind of like community signal, like governance types of things like that, because it is so noisy in Discord. So it's kind of like, it doesn't have to just be shared links and things like that. It can be, proposals. It could be lots of things, but that's not the initial focus. But yeah, we could do that over time, for sure. And then the other thing I was just going to just respond to, I think that, Durgas, one of the challenges that we had when we started, it is true that having like a token holders, restricted channel is different from some of what we were saying early on. But I think one of the challenges we have is that in the initial phases, when we were launching the TEC, we weren't really thinking about economic sustainability and how we can continue, there was this idea that we would raise a bunch of money and somehow we would have like some way of replenishing that common pool. And but it wasn't really specified how we would replenish the common pool. And so I do think that it is going to be important for us in the next, several months to redefine some of our terminology around this, so that we can remain, open, but in a way that allows us to also be economically sustainable. Because if we don't figure out this economic sustainability question, then it won't matter, because the whole thing will go away. So that's some of the work that I think we have before us in the next 6 months is, figuring out how we can be very clear about the need to be sustainable, the need to come up with economic models. And I think that starts with, to go back to the thing you were saying, Zach, it all starts with being of service. Like if we're not creating value, then we're not going to attract people. We're not going to be the Schelling point. And if we're not the Schelling point, we don't attract people, and we don't attract people to the services, and the economy, the TEC economy, doesn't really take off. So that's why this curation service is so important. It's kind of the first step for us in showing that the TEC does have a path towards becoming this Schelling point, a way of providing real value to the field of token engineering. So that's why I think this is so important. Okay. Well, these conversations are. There were two other things that we were going to cover today. So we'll only get to one. I guess what we'll do is next week. So what I would like to do in the remaining time is talk about how we handle projects. Where's the locus of our coordination around projects? And then next week, what I want to come back to is this question of what does the field of token engineering really need? Because that's going to be a really important question for these ideas, the Schelling point, and we'll come back to that next week. So what I'd love to get feedback on is we've been doing a lot of work in Clarity, and what we've been seeing is that Clarity is really good for doing project management and keeping us on track with stuff. It's the key to making async collaboration work. But it's not as good as Google Docs for doing kind of like commenting and things like that, because it's very easy to overwrite somebody else's contributions within. They don't have the same kind of like permissioning and commenting and those kinds of things that you have in things like Google Docs. So we've been trying to figure out. Bear has been trying to figure out the right way of doing this. Bear, should I do you want to kind of take this part for the last? We have about 5 minutes left in this call. Do you want to take this part?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I think the easiest way would be maybe just to show an example of what we could do. So let's see. I think there's one project that we already have finished. Let me see. Well, if not, we can just take a look at it. To this one, right? So this is like the goal that we have in Sampo for the content curation service, right? So this goal is under the roadmap, like the overall roadmap. You can scroll the way here to services roadmap, and we have here like the token holder communications, that it's more like the token holder channel, and here's the content curation service. So if we click on that, then we can see like these, I would call it maybe like a preview or like an overview of like all the plan that we could have, and my thought on how to incorporate the Google Doc, and Gideon also mentioned this. This was maybe, I think we could just like link the documents we're using here at the top of this section, and just like, simply like write the title of what it is and just link it to there. So then if you go there, like people can collaborate and communicate easier, like in an easier way. And then once you have all your work and all your planning done in those type of documents, then it's pretty easy to start like becoming more like convergent. This is something that the Clarity people explained, and when they did, it really made me understand the platform better. Just going to divergent thinking to convergent thinking. So if we start like with brainstorming documents, like planning documents, then we can start planning and creating a more structured sections of what we want to do. So for example, we can start like writing the different projects that this goal is going to take, right? So here's one project, and then if you click on that, maybe this one is empty, maybe you will need some Google Docs to add as well, so you can add them here at the top. And then again, you go from this divergent to convergent thinking that can finish up like in creating tasks, right? And you can assign tasks and really go into more granular work of project managing whatever you are doing. So yeah, I think that would be something that could really help, and I'm really hoping that we can make this Discord integration work. I think it's gonna be really helpful, especially for people that are not like super familiar with Clarity, but that it's still important for them to be on the loop of things and getting like constant um, updates on the work we're doing. So basically, what this is gonna do is like for any goal or even any project that you have on Clarity, you can just like start a thread on the Discord, and then if you go like to the Sampo Discord channel, a thread will be created automatically for this specific project. And then once you do any change here on Clarity, let's say create a task, assign someone, change the dates, add a tag, change the status, like whatever you do here, it will be reflected on Discord, right? So you can have all the conversation happening on Discord as in a chat, but like on the thread, and then you can have all the project management part on Clarity specifically. So I think that's gonna be helpful, and hopefully we can figure it out soon to start with that. So yeah, I think that this could be an idea, at least to start experimenting with it and getting feedback on how people are thinking, if it's too confusing or if it's making sense. I think this Gitcon grant project, I think, will help for that, like to analyze this process and see how can we improve. I don't know if it was kind of clear or if you guys have any questions.
Yeah, this looks really good. Bear, would you be able to give us training at some point on how to do some of this stuff yourself in case you needed help setting things up?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think that would be a good idea. Yeah, maybe we can plan like a kind of like onboarding session or guiding session for the Clarity platform and the workflows and project management processes we could have for anyone who's interested in like learning more about this. Definitely, yeah, good idea, Risha.
Sounds good. And is there, just a general high level question, is there any like way for us to see, I guess like on a weekly or monthly basis, like what percentage of tasks were predicted to be completed and then like how much was actually done?
Yeah, that's a good point. I've always wondered if they're gonna add at some point like a calendar feature where you can see like on a calendar and by week or by date what's happening. I don't think they have it yet, but for now, here specifically for Sampo, we created like on the roadmap this division of monthly goals that we have. These are more like specific to the goals we had in the funding proposal. So, it's kind of like a starting point, but I think we could maybe put some more work on this to make it easier to identify by dates. Let me think about that, and yeah, let's talk about it.
Cool, sounds good. Yeah, and maybe I would just understand that better after the quick training. So maybe there isn't any need for any more work anyways.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Okay. How about this? Since we're at the top of the hour, why don't, if people have additional thoughts on this, you can drop a note to Bear. Questions or thoughts, just drop a note to him in Discord or Bear. I don't know if you've got a section in Clarity where you're outlining this. If so, maybe you can put a link to that in Discord, or people can just comment in Discord in the Sampo channel too. All right, everybody. Well, hey, thank you for the call. Sorry for the technical difficulties on my end. And we'll see you all next week.
Sounds good. Thanks, Gideon.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks a lot.